Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Shubha Jangam. I'm a principal planner here at the city, and I have many community development department staff here, and I just want to quickly introduce them, starting with the director, Robert Buscemi. Bob, please wave so that everybody knows you. We have Robin McDonald, zoning manager, and my co-planners here, Emily, Jackie, Rima, Michael. We are going to be joined later by some of the other leadership members. I'll let you know when they come in. Our consulting partners, TSW, is going to do the presentation today. Tom Wash and Gia Lee from TSW worked with us on just last year on District of Mayfield project. And Nick Johnson is she's joining us newly for this project. He's going to head the public engagement component. We have a web page for this project. It has all the information that's coming up, and we'll be posting all the dates, including the recording of this meeting. It will be there. So keep an eye on the website. I really want to, I appreciate you attending here today in person. I see a lot of property owners here and also see neighbors. And we also have board members, cities board members, such as Design Review Board, Planning Commission, Parks and Recreation Board of Zoning Appeal. And we have, they are joining us as part of steering committee for this project. And this is a small area plan for the future of the corridor. So we are, and I know that's for some of you, it's a long time coming. So, but we are here and we are just getting started. We will have more meetings, workshops, and other public meetings and open houses later down the year. And I just wanted to welcome you again. We have agenda, printed agenda. Please pick up your agenda here. We have maps in the background. Please write your comments. Let us know where you are coming from. Use the dots to tell us where you live on the corridor. And we will have a question answer session just after the presentation. So just bear with us for just a few minutes. And the most exciting part is that we're going to have a live survey. So get your phones ready. And if you can't for a reason, use your phone. I have a printed survey. I can pass it on when we have that activity going on. So with that, I want to give it to Nick to get started. Oh, Gia is going to get started. Thank you, Gia.
Thank you, Shubha, and really welcome everyone to be here. And let me get this PowerPoint. So how does it work? All right, yeah, I think it's coming up. All right, great. Shubha already introduced our planning team, but I just want to let you know the city staff working on this project, Bob, Shubha, and Robin, and we have worked on different projects before, and we're very confident this is a great project we will be doing together again. And on TSW team, we have 5 members working on this, and here today we have 4 out of the 5 listed on the slides there. Tom and I will be mostly in charge of the design aspects and some policy stuff for me, but Nick is an expert in public engagement and policy planning. And Saloni is a new member of TSW, and she's a great urban designer, will be helping us throughout the process. So it's 5 of us working on this project. And today's agenda, as you may already get familiar, we did the introduction, and here I'm just give you a project overview. And Nick will talk through our findings about the Arnold Mill corridor area as of today. And from there, we're here mainly today to get your input about your ideas and your vision for the area. But keep in mind that we do have the city's comp plan in place, and we have the 2014 visioning study, which already set a stage. But that is something we need to revisit and see if it's some of the recommendations still valid, what needs to be changed. So we're developing a new like small area plan for the entire corridor. And at the end, we'll tell you next steps, how you can keep involved throughout this entire process. The overview of the project. The goal of the project here is very broad. We're trying to develop a small area plan, which keep in mind with the Milton's rural character, but also in line with the local community wishes. The different phase of the project, we have already started the initiative and understanding. Basically, we looked at the existing conditions and all the relevant plans already. That's what we're going to present in a little bit. And the big chunk of this study is community engagement. And today is the kickoff where we start this process. To get your input, and the next meeting will be a hands-on like workshop. We put pens and papers on the table. We draw together as of the different areas along the corridor where we want some focus, some development, and where we want to keep the rural character, things like that. And we'll take that input and refine it and come back to the public open house and get feedbacks. From there, we will develop a draft concept plan and also a small area plan with not just pictures, but also policies and action items as of how we can turn the vision into reality. And most important, in the end, we will look at the code and existing zoning code and see if we need design guidelines for certain like features or characters we want for this corridor. And this is the timeline for the project. Today is a kickoff, and we'll give people enough time. We will have a survey today, but we'll keep it also open until end of April to get feedback from people in the community who may not be able to attend today's meeting. And the workshop will be in June, and the public open house will be in August or early September. We hope to get the draft plan in place by October, and from there we take to the code and design guideline phase. And next, Nick will tell you about our findings.
Thank you, Gia. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here. If at any point you can't hear me, just let me know, and I'll get closer to the microphone. All right, so as Gia mentioned, we've taken a little bit of a preliminary look at the corridor to look at some existing conditions. This is a pretty standard part of any planning process. We want to get a lay of the land before we dive into looking at design and recommendations. But I want to stress that our view on this is very preliminary, and we're hoping to learn from you about things that we should pay closer attention to through our engagement program starting today. So after this presentation and the open Q&A, I would invite you to visit the boards in the back of the room if you haven't already. We have 2 boards depicting the study area split between north and south because it's so long. So if you have any questions, we'll be there at the back. So to start, a lot of this will be information that you might know already. Our study area is the 3-mile stretch of Arnold Mill Road, which is also State Route 140. It's bounded by Cherokee County and the Little River in the north and the city of Alpharetta in the south. We are going from the Little River all the way down to Green Road, where that node of townhomes, the more intense development is. But we're going to be focusing on the parcels kind of north of that development, just in general. This follows the boundary of the character area in the City of Milton's comp plan. And so because that is what the visioning study was done under, and it is the policy document that governs change in the City of Milton. The study area is approximately 520 acres, and it's over 100 parcels. And as Gia mentioned, the character is rural in that uniquely Milton flair way. It's a gateway that joins 3 different jurisdictions: the City of Roswell, City of Alpharetta, City of Milton, 4 jurisdictions in Cherokee County. And it's very rural with residential uses, agricultural uses, forested areas, and some historic properties. Some landmarks. We have already pointed out in our conversations with some of you the landfill in the north, the historic house that's right next to there. And in the southern part of the corridor, we have the Ebenezer United Methodist Church, which I believe is where we will have our second engagement. So mark your calendars. The new Georgia Golf Center and the Legacy Park, which is also new. As for the character, Arnold Mill is more of a winding road feel than a state route, but it currently operates at level of service D, which means that it's undergoing some transportation traffic challenges, which I'm sure y'all are aware of. There's no municipal sewer right now. It's got mixed low density land use, and it's experiencing some growth pressure from North Fulton. Gia mentioned the 2014 visioning study. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that included. The main objective was to guide new development to 1 to 2 small activity nodes that would be governed by a zoning overlay district, which is what Gia was referring to when she mentioned that we would be looking at the code at the later part of this plan. Outside of those activity nodes, the rest would be reserved for rural, agricultural, and low density residential use. So that's kind of what we need to validate with you all throughout this process, is whether that's the goal that we still should be striving for and where those activity nodes should go. Recommendations, other recommendations from this study were to respect the rural character of the corridor, preserve open space, avoid strip commercial and office development, avoid the standard pod model of subdivision development, avoid dense townhomes and apartments, apply design standards to new development so that it fits in with the rest of the City of Milton's character, and preserve historic and environmental resources along the corridor. So that's what we're hoping to validate and through this process and evolve on those recommendations. I'm going to talk briefly a little bit about some other things that we've pulled through the data. Environmentally, there's very little floodplain area in this corridor. It's rolling topography throughout, and it's generally on a downslope towards the Little River. In terms of zoning, most of the corridor is AG1, and if you're interested in learning what can be built according to Milton zoning right now in AG1 districts, we have a board about that in the back. The average parcel size is about 6 acres. That is excluding the denser part of the study area in the south. So it's really just everything north of that. The average parcel size is about 6 acres. And there's one area zoned R2A, which is a single family residential category as well, just south of the landfill. There are small pockets of commercial toward the northern border, specifically adjacent to the landfill at the intersection of Lackey Road. And again, I just wanted to reiterate the AG1 poster back there in case you're interested in learning what that dictates. In terms of future land use, it's mostly aligned with zoning. So zoning tells you what you can do on your property by right now, and future land use is the way that the city looks to the future and says, what's the general character of these areas that we want to establish going forward? So about 63% of the study area is designated for agriculture, equestrian, and estate residential, and about 25% is designated for parks, recreation, and open space. A lot of that is the landfill, but together that adds up to about 88%, which corresponds with the AG1. In terms of non-residential future land use, again, you can see some of the red patches up there that indicates retail and service, but those locations need to be validated through this process. All right. Any questions before I go further into our interactive engagement? Yes, sir. Yes. And if you have further questions about that, I would point you to Shuba or Bob if he's in the room. Yes. All right. Yes, sir.
That's Clark's. And I love the park concept too, but I'm just curious, I mean, development, what happened to the development?
Yes. Did you want to jump in, Shuba? So that's actually one of the questions that we have for y'all in our survey, specifically, because there are some types that we have worked with in the past that can go in between them, and they're a little hard to describe, but I can give you picture examples that we'll be using in our survey.
In addition to that, Nick referred to the chart over there in the back, that tells you if you are AG1 zone, there are many other alternatives to residential that you can use your property for, you know. So just check if it fits your need. If not, then we can, this is the process that we're going to follow. If you see something different for yourself, you can let us know, and we can see if the community agrees with you or not for that use.
Yes. Say again.
So in 2020, we had a comprehensive plan. That comprehensive plan is a roadmap for the future. Every city is required to do it. We do it every 10 years and update it every 5 years. So when we were doing it, with the community, that we had a community a CPAC, which was an advisory committee. On top of that, we had a public engagement, just like we are doing today. And the community told us that they want us to look into this area more closely and wants to do more planning besides just regular future land use map. So that's why it's documented that they wanted the city to create a new small area plan for this area, and that's what we are starting today.
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on, I should.
No, they don't necessarily correspond, and that's part of the reason why we're here today, is to figure out, is to update that study essentially and say, where can those go? So I think, right, Shuba? So she asked if the original visioning study set the recommendation for activity nodes that are now in where the C2 is, but I don't think those are necessarily corresponded.
Well, the earlier work that we had done, is that, the earlier work that we had done 12, 15 years ago, along these same lines, had pretty clearly indicated that mixed use was advisable farther south from where you've got the two activity nodes. Is that now off the table because the AAE was changed?
No, I don't think that's off the table.
We haven't taken anything off the table. In fact, now everything is on the table. We want to hear from you, and we are going to do what this community wants. You know, this is the time to create the new plan that is going to tell us what's going to happen in the next 10 years.
One difference between the visioning study and this plan is that this plan will set an implementation agenda for carrying out the recommendations that we make in partnership with y'all.
The State Route 140 is on the books, on the plan to be widened, but they don't have a real schedule for it. The project doesn't have a schedule, like it's going to happen in next 5 years. They don't really have a schedule yet. But yes, there is a plan for widening. We have seen some concepts, but those are really concepts of widenings.
All right. I'm going to ask you to save your question so that we can get into the survey, and then we'll have more time to do Q&A after that. So if we could put the survey back up on the screens. So this is where we ask you to take out your phones, and there will be a QR code that you can scan, or you can go to menti.com, menti.com. We do have paper copies available if you would rather fill it out that way. But this tool allows us to see the results in real time. It will be on the screen, yeah. All right, so if you can't access the QR code, you can also go to menti.com and type in that numerical code. And you should be taken to a waiting screen. That is okay, you're in the right place. All right. Give folks a couple seconds longer. All right, does everybody see the waiting screen? Or it should be blank, maybe there's a thumbs up button. Okay, you can hit the thumbs up button if you want. It doesn't indicate anything other than that you're there. Okay, all right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the first question, when you envision a rural place, what features do you see? And you can answer, you can select all, or you can select none, or any number in between. The options should be on your phone, but just in case, we have open space, farms and farmland, farmhouses, single-family houses, forests, wildlife, scenic views, country stores, historic homes, or something else. All right. So as the results come in, we'll get to see who says what. Well, not specifically, but in aggregate. This is anonymous, by the way. All right, so far, open space and farms and farmland are at the top. Farmhouses, country views, historic homes. Single-family homes, very low in the list. Forests, also low. Okay. Has everybody gotten a chance to submit? We're still working through it. Yes, there you go. All right. Let's see if anything's updated. All right, so definitely in the lead are farms, farmland, open space, farmhouses, country stores. We do have one for something else. Would that person who wrote something else be brave enough to contribute what they think something else means? You don't have to, I'm just curious. Walking trails, okay, great. There's another question about that later, so definitely could answer that one too. Okay, all right. The next two questions are kind of open form. What unique qualities should be preserved along the Arnold Mill corridor? You can say anything you like, and they'll show up on the screen. All right. So seeing some common themes, we've got trees, farms, country feel, open. I like Milton-ish. It's very good. We do have some other ones, history. Okay. So these horse fences, open spaces. Very nice. Would anybody like to expound upon any of these that they think Arnold Mill in particular would be good for to preserve these unique qualities? All right. All right, switching gears. What challenges do we face along the Arnold Mill corridor? One. I think that's it. It's big. That might be the only one. Lack of walkway. So if we did have a walkway, it would need to be divided with enough safety. Yes, got it. Development plan. Would the person who development plan? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Sure. Can I repeat your answer? So the gentleman said he's worried about developing in a way without a plan because you would begin to lose that Milton feel outside of that summation. Okay, good. Yes. So that is one thing with this plan is to find ways to channel it in the right places so that the rest of the corridor can remain with that rural Milton feel. Unless you all have something in mind, in which case we will follow that path. But that sounds kind of like what we're headed to right now. Do we need to go back to the QR code? Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. I think in the interest of time, this will be available after this meeting if you wanted to record and answer that way too. So I think in the interest of time, we'll move forward. Lack of municipal sewer. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. I didn't test this on a phone. I'm hoping that you can expand. If you click on it, you can on a laptop computer, but if not, they are on the screen. So this question is a ranking question. You have 4 choices. Feel, and I want you to put your answers from 1 to 4, with 1 being I agree the most, 4 being I disagree the most. The answer choices are 2-lane road with very little development, homes but mostly farms/forests, 2-lane road with several single-family subdivisions and some natural land, and then 4-lane road with many subdivisions and significant retail. Yeah. All right. So right now, in the lead is 2-lane road with some homes, but mostly farms and forests. So yes, Ultimately, it is a GDOT project to widen the road, but as Shubha said, the goal here is to document and, take that and say this community wants.
B would have sidewalks.
Yes. Hypothetically. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So if any printed versions, we will record and add to whatever the results are online. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move on in case. Four lane with a rural feel. I hear some disagreement.
Roads attract cars.
Yes.
So, California, they made 16 lanes, and they kept making more lanes, it just traffic.
Yeah.
I think the plans are that when they do expand, they're going to have a bridge. So the bridge would go one way, and the other bridge would go
Another way. I think there are a lot of examples of road widenings making it, inducing demand like that. So that it was going to be widened, then we will take that and put it in our survey list. All right. So now we're going to talk about the activity nodes. Which uses do you feel are appropriate for future activity nodes along Arnold Mill? So the pictures you see, A is a picture, an aerial view of a mixed-use village, kind of like Birmingham Crossing. B would be small stores, country stores with familiar design, so that farmhouse or general store aesthetic. C, small town, downtown, quote, development, like Crabapple, as an example, and D, a typical suburban shopping area. And you can choose any of these that you like, any number. We are very well represented across many of these. So right now we're seeing A, B, and C all pretty popular, with the maligned suburban shopping center at lowest on the list by a long shot. Okay, point taken. All right, we've got 2 more questions. Submit your answers now. All right. So we talked a little bit about the form in that last question, but now we're going to talk about what can go there. So what do you envision are appropriate establishments for areas outside of the activity nodes? Again, you can, this would be large lot residential, institutional uses, which would include churches, libraries, private schools, other things too. Garden centers, animal care establishments, recreational fields, equestrian facilities, and then auto-oriented business, etc. So the visioning study done 10 years ago identified places that would concentrate services and development in specific areas, which would then, in theory, leave the rest of the corridor rural. So those are what we're calling activity nodes. Think about it as like where, if you had to pick 2 small areas to, what would you like to see in them? You can abstain. All right, so far we have outside of the activity nodes, large lot residential and equestrian facilities with 10 and 9. And then with 7 each, we have recreational fields, institutional uses, and garden centers, 1 for animal care establishments. Businesses. This is one to check out that board in the back about what the code already allows in AG1 after answering this question. All right, and then this is our final question. Which housing types do you believe are appropriate for the activity nodes? A depicts a single family home on a large lot. B depicts townhomes. C depicts live work, which is where you mix a small scale building with non-residential and residential. So it could be a coffee shop with residential in it, or it could be some other service business. And then D, cottage courts, which are around a common green space. And since this is our last type, getting to the gentleman's question earlier, that you think is appropriate that we don't have on here, we would love to hear it. All right, so far, cottage courts is in the lead. And live work, townhomes, be that much interest in those. All right, I'll leave this open for a little while longer, and we can transition to the open Q&A if there are other questions that y'all have for us. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, I would right off Green Road.
Okay.
So I actually probably would talk about the area behind us, but I think about the hospital. I'm just curious.
I think that's a question for Robin or Shuba, or, well, you stood up, Robin, so I thought you were getting ready to come to the mic.
Obviously, you've seen over the years some of the structures. To be honest, we have not heard a peep from anybody for 3 years. So, and that is news to us about Northside purchasing it. But again, nobody has come to us, and usually I'm one of the first people to know when they call me up and say, we'd like to do X, Y, or Z. So, yeah, and I'm not saying it's in, haven't come to us yet. So, yeah. So right now it's, so it is along the corridor of Arnold Mills, south of Green is T5. Distance, I don't know, maybe 100 feet, and then it transitions to T. So, and then I believe it's Alpharetta that's right behind, below it. So, yeah. So T5, and again, this is in crabapple form-based code. You go, basically it's very flexible. It allows for residential, it allows for office, retail, because that's really the point of form-based code is we look at the it's design, the exterior, and we don't really dictate, minute by minute, oh, it has 500 square feet of this and 500 square feet of that. It's more like it's driven by the development. We just care that it works as far as from an aesthetic point as well as transportation and the rear. So that's how the form-based code is worked out. I would need to look at the code, but I think it is fairly limited, but I would need to look at the code to give you a specific answer. I can't, I don't remember right off the top of the head. It's very permitted, so.
all the way down.
So I believe, and maybe Shuba can correct me, and I thought I saw somebody from Public Works come in, but maybe that was earlier. My understanding is they're working with GDOT to put in a traffic signal and report back to confirm that, but that's a great question. Well, that's part of this study. That's kind of one of the goals, is to kind of to relook at that intersection or node. So yeah.
All just off the soccer field. And first I went to the street, and we're big building that we're building. Right now, there at this time of day. Got plenty of time. Whatever you want to do, but you're going to be there. Try to make a left.
Right. Yeah, I know. I think obviously that's probably why it's a D. And the level of service, I do know that we're working with the city of Roswell in conjunction with our public together for the Etris Road, how it comes into Cox Road. And I know that's a dangerous intersection. So there is a plan to help mitigate some of those issues that has caused. So I can only speak to that because it's more of a state route, I believe, at the intersection of Cox and Arnold Mill.
We got parking in there. Even able to 150 people.
Right.
So when we get that parking. Load on that. 3 times what currently exists. So, and we're planning on looking.
Well, I mean, I know that when we went through the use permit process a few years ago, Public Works would have, had the any requirements for upgrading part of that development. So that's all I can speak to that as far as, and I think we look at, it's not like every day that building's going to be used at capacity. At least I don't, unless you have, well, I know. Anyway.
I will say to add to that, about on the transportation front, a typical thing that is done in these plans whenever you look at urban design, or in this case, rural design, you do look for opportunities for connections and how to improve the transportation situation. So that is something we're going to be exploring in this.
And I'm glad you brought that up. My suggestion to people who are going to be involved in some of this decision making, whether the city level or the private level, go out and drive these roads between 6 and 8 a.m. on Monday and Friday. Not because you want to, but because you should if you're going to make some of these decisions.
Sure.
And then drive them from 8 to 10 a.m. because you think it lightens up, but it doesn't. And drive it from Holly Springs to Mansell. And drive that. And then drive it from 3 to 5 and then 5 to 7. And try it on a Monday and try it on a Friday. I think it's important to mention that.
Yeah.
And then go down Green Road and come back. Go down Cox Road and come back. Ranchette Road and come back. These are things that it's great to do a study, and I'm sure you guys are going to be doing a lot of this. And my suggestion is maybe more so even to you and your group than others. But the people that live here take their kids to and from things all day, every day, driving around, trying to find a restaurant to eat at. We're talking about drive-throughs. I mean, you can talk about the benefit or the bad thing about drive-throughs, but the reality is, like a late baseball practice at 10 p.m., you have 2 options: McDonald's or Waffle House.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who owns land up and down 140, who's also raising their kids shortly off, or a short distance off 140, I mean, we're talking about livability here as well. So I think some of the votes that are coming in, I mean, if this thing is eventually a 4-lane road, let's hope it's not Holcomb Bridge, okay? But there is going to be change. So I think embracing that change, realizing that this is a corridor where they're building thousands of homes. There are people that are commuting into the city still, post-COVID or whatever you want to call it today, driving right down this road. This is their commute.
Yeah.
Being someone that used to live in Cherokee County who used this road, now I live in Milton. You know, there are times where if there's a wreck, the road is shut down. People are going down dirt roads to avoid the wrecks, things like that.
Yeah.
So these are all real things that I highly recommend if we're talking about the eventual 4-lane, if we're talking about other things. We can talk about horse farms. We can talk about, you know, a 10,000 square foot home on 10 acres. But how many people want to build their forever home on a farm on a 4-lane road?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you own the land, would you build your forever home on Holcomb Bridge or Alpharetta Highway? So I think it's important that we maintain the Milton look and feel where it's viable. But 140 is 140. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere in the sense of keeping progress away from that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So I was gonna also say, I did just look up about drive-throughs. Only drive-throughs are only allowed under the T4 open and T5 with a use permit. So what that means is it's like, I like to call it the icing to the cake. You have the underlying zoning of T4 or T5, and then the use permit has to go before mayor and city council, planning commission before that to get approval for the drive-through. So it's not something that's done by right. So even if you had, you know, a McDonald's, wouldn't be a McDonald's. Many things in our form-based code is allowed by right, but that's one of the things in Crabapple that is not permitted by right. You would have to go through an extra public hearing process. So that's the answer to the drive-through.
The drive-through question. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
Just about drive-throughs, because some people might say, well, why is there a drive-through at McDonald's? That's Roswell or Alpharetta. I'm getting further down. We're talking about this land on Green and 140 being built.
It's
10
one.
feet away from the other city that
Yep.
would allow that.
Yep.
Just so we're clear.
Yep.
So it is a very interesting.
And we are focused on the eastern and northern side of Arnold Mill, where it butts up to Roswell and Alpharetta. But we have been in contact with the folks at jurisdictions that are bordering this and talking about their plans too. Yes, ma'am. Oh,
When I first moved to the area, Cherokee County was proposing a huge development right where Arnold Mill turns and goes toward downtown Woodstock. And Milton refused to widen the road and it stopped the project. But are y'all working with Cherokee? Because they could really mess up anything you want to do.
we have spoken with their planning department and gotten a sense for what their pending developments are. So yes, we're taking that into consideration.
Yeah, and I know that this is a real challenge because we really don't have control over what GDOT is going to do, but we definitely have a good sense of what we want in our part of town here. So that's why we had some of the surveys trying to gauge from you, like when we say rural, what do you really see? Do you really want 4 lanes? Even if you want 4 lanes, exactly the way we showed, do you want us to create come up with some creative solutions where we can have a balanced approach to transportation and the scenic views of rural viewshed, so
Yep.
That's what we are working on.
Yes, sir.
Good point about traffic count. I mean, Cherokee County is fastest growing county in the state, so we can't control traffic count. And honestly, whether or not it gets 4-lane or not, it may get to the point where it's going to get that break point, but it may not happen in our lifetime. I wouldn't conflate that with land use, 2 different issues. And so that leads me to the question about the activity nodes. Is that kind of legacy old Fulton County zoning, where those activity notes are, or is that future land use map stuff, or?
It would be land use related. This plan is not changing zoning. So The activity nodes that we are looking to plan for are conceptual, and
So
they,
they're not presently zoned for commercial.
correct.
Well, in front of the landfill, there's under construction, a C-store right now. So is that legacy old
Yes, so that was,
commercial zoning?
yeah, so that, next Chadwick, the road,
Right.
along Arnold Mill, the development there, there was a zoning back in Fulton County prior to our incorporation. Long story short, it ended up being C1. And so that was there before we were incorporated, as well as there's a piece across the street, on the west side of Arnold Mill. It's an old family, and maybe you're here, I don't know, you might be here. An old family business that's been there since the 80s. Again, that little piece of C1, if you look at the zoning map, has been there. So we have not, above the crabapple form-based code of those townhomes, we have not rezoned anything. The only thing that has happened is we've approved use permits, for instance, for the Ebenezer Methodist Church, for their facility, as well as there's been a couple of landscape businesses approved throughout the years by a use permit, but no actual, true pure C1 has the city approved.
I understand the C-store in front of the landfill, was there litigation involved with that?
Exactly, right. So
Could you
it's a
expound
bit,
on-
2 or 3 years ago, the property owner came to us and we went into a negotiation and basically negotiated exactly how the C-store would look, and how things would be built. They would be 3 buildings built together, or 3 structures built together, as well as there are some other buildings planned behind it. So we were very, very specific about the architecture, exactly how it would be. It's not a typical gas station. The pumps will be in the rear. There will be a building. The commercial store will be in the front. It will be the first of its kind in the area as far as how it is. It's not a typical gas station.
Right, thank you.
I'm sorry? Not very many, because we have very specific, and I'm sorry for the, it won't be a large gas station, because a few years ago, probably about 10, 12 years ago, we adopted standards for gas stations throughout the city. And so we limited the size. So you're not going to have a QT, you're not going to have a racetrack. It's going to be very mom and pop-ish. So.
All right. So if we could throw the slides back up on the screens real fast. We did want to leave you all with some dates to plan for, and then we'll be hanging out in the back. Thank you so much for participating in the survey. I would really encourage y'all to tell your neighbors, your friends who are Miltonians to take it. It will be posted to our webpage imminently, if it isn't already. And that will be open until April 30th. So we want to leave a long to learn about the project and provide their feedback. The next engagement we have on the calendar is June 13th will be our community workshop. That's what Gia was describing, where we have a bunch of maps and paper and we draw and design together what we see for the activity node specifically, but then other parts of the corridor if that allows. That's where we can break out if we think a trail should go in or a sidewalk. It gets committed to paper and part of this process. And so that'll be June 13th, and we're going to be hosted by Ebenezer United Methodist Church. Thank you so much. If you have questions or comments, you can get in touch with us or visiting the project webpage. Again, my name is Nick, and Tom, Saloni, Gia, and I, along with the city staff, well, I won't speak for your whereabouts, but we're going to be hanging out in the back. And we'd love to talk with you some more about it. So with that, we'll take a break for and meet you all back there. Yes, sir.
I had pictures in 2000 here. No, I know, that's the same, don't. Yes, we're seeing it right.